The auction house was quiet now. Only the hum of freezing machines echoed in the dark corners of the back room. Rows of frozen bodies lay inside, transparent capsules, cold, sealed, and forgotten. They weren't soldiers or prisoners. They were products, slaves, failed breeders, leftovers from alien wars. One capsule sat in the far corner of the room, covered in frost and dust. No one had looked at it in days. A female alien lay inside, curled tightly, skin pale with ice, eyes closed. A small tag hung from the edge. Damaged goods. Unfit for trade. Price: 2 credits. A human trader named Elias had just finished inspecting the shipment. He wasn't looking for anything special, just supplies. Maybe tools, maybe old tech. Frozen bodies, not meat, as the aliens here called them. But as he turned to leave, something pulled his attention back. A soft sound, barely there, like a sigh. He paused, thinking it was in his head. Then he heard it again, faint, weak, but real. He slowly walked toward the corner. Frost cracked under his boots. He wiped the fog from the capsule's glass. At first he saw nothing unusual. Small body curled up like the others. Thin arms, cracked skin, strange but graceful facial features. But then, her chest moved. Just a little. Then again, his breath caught. "She's breathing," he whispered. He called out to the alien worker nearby. "Hey, this one's still alive." It's the worker, a reptilian creature with yellow eyes. Barely. Looked that faulty batch, brain dead. Sometimes they twitch. Just body reflex. Useless. Elias stared at the girl again. Her fingers had moved. Not a twitch, she had curled them in like she was reaching for something. "How much?" Elias asked, voice firmed. The worker blinked. "You serious? 2 credits if you want to burn money? No refund? I'll take her." Transferred the credits. No one stopped him. No one cared. Elias placed his coat over the capsule and dragged it toward his small cargo shuttle. The cold crept into his bones, but he didn't stop. Once inside, he turned the heating system on full and opened the capsule. Steam poured out as the warmth hit the frozen air. The girl didn't wake up, but her body twitched again, more this time. Her lips moved slightly as if trying to speak. Her skin was turning from pale gray to soft blue, with faint, strange patterns under the surface. Elias wrapped her in blankets and set up the emergency heater. He knelt beside her, checking for signs of frostbite or infection. There were marks. On her arms, burned scars like brands. He hated seeing that. "Who did this to you?" he whispered, knowing she couldn't answer. She began to shake, not violently, but like a child waking from a nightmare. Her lips moved again. This time, a single word escaped, a whisper, dry and soft. "Warm." Elias blinked. "You can talk?" She didn't answer, but her head turned slightly, just enough to rest against his arm. Her breathing was shallow, but steady now. He couldn't believe it. They were going to throw her away like garbage. He watched her sleep and wondered how many others had been lost like this, frozen, labeled unfit, and sold like meat. He didn't know who she was or what species she came from, but he knew one thing. She was alive. She needed help. Outside the window, stars drifted by, silent and cold. But inside the ship, there was warmth now. A new story had begun, one that no scanner or auction tag could measure, and Elias wasn't walking away. She opened her eyes slowly, as if waking up from a very long nightmare. The lights in the shuttle were dim, and warmth wrapped around her like something unreal. Her body hurt, her fingers stiff, and her lips cracked. Everything felt wrong, but one thing felt different. She wasn't cold anymore. A human sat nearby watching her. He looked surprised, but not scared. His face was soft, kind, and confused. He didn't move closer. He waited. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak. She had words inside her, deep, buried, desperate words. But all that came out was a weak whisper. Warm. Elias leaned forward. "You said that before," he said gently. "You're safe now." Safe. She didn't understand the word. Not really. Something about his tone made her breathing calm. She looked at his face again, and for the first time, she saw something she had forgotten: eyes that looked at her like a person, not a product. She tried to sit up. Her body wouldn't listen. A sharp pain shot through her spine, and she cried out softly. Elias moved, but didn't touch her without asking, "Can I help you sit?" She blinked, then gave the tiniest nod. He slid his arms under her and lifted her gently. She was light, far too light, like she hadn't eaten in weeks, maybe months. He wrapped another blanket around her and placed a water tube near her lips. She stared at it like she didn't know what it was. "It's water. Drink slow," she tried. Her throat burned, but the liquid felt like life. She took one small sip, then another. Elias watched her carefully. Couldn't stop thinking about what she had gone through. Her skin was covered in faded scars. Brand on her neck still looked red. Someone had burned ownership into her flesh. "Do you have a name?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, her hand moved slowly, weak and shaking toward her chest. She touched it twice, then pointed at him. Elias frowned. "That's your name?" She blinked once. "No," he understood after a moment. "Me?" he asked. She blinked again. "Yes." Then her hand went back to her chest. My. She couldn't say the next word. But Elias understood. "My human." His chest tightened. He looked away for a second, pretending to check the systems, but he wasn't checking anything. He just needed a moment to breathe. To understand why this hurt so much. She'd been someone's property for so long that now, even rescued, she thought she belonged to him. Not because she wanted to be owned, but because that's all she knew. "No," he said quietly. "You're not mine. You're free." She blinked at him, confused again. He pulled out an old tablet and showed her pictures. People, homes, families. "You can choose where to go, who to be." She looked at the pictures, then back at him. Her lips moved again. "You choose me?" Elias froze. "I didn't buy you to use you," he said. "I bought you to save you." She didn't understand all the words, but her fingers reached for his hand anyway. She held it gently, with both of hers, and leaned her head onto his arm. Outside the ship, stars floated in silence. Inside, 4. The first time in years, the alien girl slept in peace, her head resting against someone who didn't want her for her body, but for her life, and Elias didn't sleep at all. He just watched her breathe, afraid that if he blinked, she might vanish again. Elias stepped into the shuttle's hallway, trying to stretch his legs after hours of sitting. But before he could take another step, he felt a light tug on his jacket. He turned. She was standing behind him barefoot, shivering slightly, wrapped in a blanket like it was armor. Her hands gripped his sleeve tightly. Her eyes were wide with fear, silently begging him not to go. "I'm just going to the cockpit," he said softly. "You can lie down, rest." She shook her head, slowly, firmly, then pointed to herself, then to him. Her way of saying she needed to stay close. He gave a small nod. "All right, you can come." They sat together again, this time on the floor, back against the wall. Elias handed her a nutrient bar. She took it with both hands like it was treasure and chewed slowly, carefully. Every few seconds, she looked at him, just to make sure he was still there. She's like a child who was never allowed to grow, he thought. But there was something more, not just fear, trust. Deep, painful, almost dangerous trust. She didn't know his name. She didn't speak his language, yet she clung to him like he was her last chance to stay alive. Later that night, she surprised him. She reached out with one finger and gently touched his hand, then pointed at the ring finger. Then, with a slight tilt of her head, she touched her own. Elias blinked. Was she asking to marry him? He wasn't sure if she understood the human meaning. Maybe in her culture, that gesture meant something else. But the way she looked at him, soft, nervous, hopeful, made his heart pound. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out the translator device and handed it to her. She stared at it, puzzled. "You speak?" he said, tapping the device. She touched it carefully, then brought it to her lips. Her voice came out broken, weak, but clear through the device. Name. Rinya? Elias smiled. Rinya? That's your name? She nodded slowly, then looked at him, her lips moving again. Your name?
Elias,
He said. She repeated it once softly, then smiled back just a little. That night she didn't sleep. In the bed alone, she sat by the door next to him, curled up with her head against his shoulder. She didn't ask. She didn't need to. And he didn't move her. He stayed there with her, awake, thinking, what had she been through? What had they done to her? When morning came, Rinya tried to walk again. Her legs were weak, but she pushed herself forward, holding the wall for balance. Elias followed her, just in case she fell. Then he noticed something strange, a glowing mark. On her back, just under the blanket, he stopped her. Wait, let me see. She froze, breathing fast, but after a moment, she nodded and lowered the blanket a little. There it was, an old brand. But beneath it, something else. It's a different mark, hidden, glowing faintly. It wasn't a slave brand. It was a symbol of royalty. Elias stared at it in shock. You're not just anyone, he whispered. You were someone important. Rinya looked confused. He showed her the scanner. The symbol matched a Cresta royal house from a fallen alien empire. That house had been destroyed in a war 10 years ago. Everyone was thought to be dead. But now, here she was, alive, scarred, broken, but breathing, and she had chosen him. Rinya sat by the window of the shuttle, her eyes watching the endless stars. She wasn't blinking. She wasn't crying. But something inside her had changed. Elias stood a few feet away, quietly repairing a cracked panel. But he kept glancing. At her, she hadn't said a word since he showed her the royal crest. It was like a switch had flipped one that scared him. More than silence ever had. He walked over slowly and sat beside her. You okay? He asked, even though he already knew the answer. Her fingers gripped the edge of her blanket. Then with a slow breath, she reached into the folds of her robe. Her hand shook as she pulled out a small chain worn and dirty, nearly hidden. At the end of the chain hung a broken pendant. It shimmered faintly, split down the middle like someone had torn it apart on purpose. Elias leaned in, gently taking it in his hands. 2 names were carved into the surface, in a flowing alien script. One was Rinya. The other, he couldn't read. Yet he scanned it with his device. The translator paused, glitched, then gave a weak result. Beloved promise, she took the pendant back. Holding it close to her chest, as if it were her last connection to a past, no one believed she still had. You were engaged? Elias asked softly. Rinya looked at him as full of pain, and nodded once. But something went wrong. Another nod, slower this time. Elias looked down, piecing it together. They betrayed you. She didn't answer with words. She simply placed her hand over her heart, then moved it outward, breaking the air. Like a thread snapping in two. And then for the first time she began to speak in full sentences. Her voice was quiet but steady through the translator. They said my house was gone. No survivors. I was put in cryo. Not to protect me, but to erase me. Elias's heart tightened. They froze you alive, so no one would know you existed. She nodded again. Because I could carry the bloodline. Because I was the last. He didn't know what to say. What words could heal something like that? But Rinya wasn't looking for healing anymore. She had found something else. She leaned forward, reached for his hand and pressed her fingers over his heart. You warm, she whispered again, not cruel. Elias looked into her eyes. They were no longer full of fear, they were full of memory, of sorrow, and something deeper choice. You don't have to stay, he said. I can take you to any colony, any planet. You can start over. Shook her head gently. I don't want to start alone. I want to stay where I feel alive. Her voice shook, but her grip on his hand didn't. Then, she surprised him again. She stood on her weak legs, walked to the console, and pointed at the scanner. Search, she said. For what? Elias asked. She took a deep breath. The other, name, the name on the pendant. The one broken and lost, Elias searched for it, cross-checking every database, every record until he found something. The name belonged to a royal guard. Killed in the same attack, the file said body unrecovered. Rinya stared at the screen, then whispered something he didn't expect. Then I was not left behind. I was thrown away. She turned to him with calm, steady eyes. And still, someone found me. The sky above the quiet planet was clear until a dark shape appeared, moving fast. A patrol ship, smooth and silver, landed near Elias's small settlement without warning. He was outside repairing his solar unit when the wind changed. He looked up, his heart sinking. Ships like that didn't come to visit. They came for one reason: retrieval. Rinya stepped out of the doorway behind him. She had sensed it too. Her long robe shifted in the wind. Her eyes locked onto the ship. She didn't blink. 3 alien officers stepped down from the ramp, armored and cold-faced. One held a datapad, the other a scanner. "Human," one said. "Without greeting, you are in possession of illegal property." Elias took a step forward. "She's not property. She was recorded as unfit frozen merchandise. Her original transfer code confirms it. She is not allowed to remain in citizen territory. She's not merchandise. She's alive-end. Her name is Rinya." The officers didn't care. "She will be removed. This is final." Behind him, Rinya walked forward slowly. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't shaking. Not this time. Elias tried to stop her, but she gently placed her hand on his arm, then stepped in front of him. "I will speak for myself," she said through the translator. The officers scanned her again. Suddenly alarms sounded on their devices. Her hidden mark had triggered something. Royal signal detected House Illarith. Confirmed. The lead officer's voice dropped. "That can't be. House Illarith was destroyed?" Rinya looked them in the eyes. "Not all of it." There was a long silence. Then the officer lowered his pad. His tone shifted, but not with respect. With discomfort. "You are still flagged as void. No legal role. No throne. That house holds no power." "I don't want a throne," she said. "I don't want anything from you." "Then return with us, and your case will be evaluated." "Not going. This human is not authorized. He is my husband." Elias blinked. He hadn't expected her to say that. The officers looked at him. "Is this true?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Looked at Rinya. Her eyes were steady. No fear, just choice. "Yes," he said. "She's my wife." The patrol went quiet. They spoke to each other in low tones. Then, without another word, they turned and walked back to their ship. No fight. No orders. Just retreat. Elias watched the ship rise and vanish into the clouds. Then he turned to her. "Why did you say that?" Rinya didn't answer right away. She walked back to the doorway, stepped inside, then looked over her shoulder. "Because I don't want to be rescued anymore," she whispered. "I want to belong." They stepped into the town together, side by side. It was Rinya's first time outside the shuttle since arriving on the planet. She walked slowly, her hood pulled over her silver-blue hair, her hand tightly wrapped around Elias's. The town wasn't large, just a few rows of homes, a trading post, a local doctor, and some shops. But it had plenty of eyes. All of them turned toward her. People stopped talking. Conversations broke off mid-sentence. Faces stared, some curious, some cruel. "She's the one from the meat vault," someone muttered. "Can you believe he brought her here like a wife? She was frozen cargo. That's not a real woman." Elias heard every word. So did Rinya. But she didn't hide behind him. She kept walking, chin high, every step trembling yet proud. Her posture said one thing: "I am not weak." At the trading post, Elias asked for some clothes for her, something warm, clean, fitted. The clerk hesitated. "We don't have anything for her kind," Elias leaned forward. "You have cloth, right? Make it fit her?" The clerk grumbled. But he did it. Rinya tried on the outfit behind a curtain. When she stepped out, the room fell silent again. She wore a dark blue long coat with a silver belt around her waist. Her glowing skin peeked from her collar, the ancient mark barely visible near her neck. She didn't look like frozen meat. She looked like a forgotten queen. Outside, whispers followed. Them? Why her? What does she have he wants? It's not normal. They were halfway back to the shuttle when the attack came. 3 men stepped out of an alley, faces hidden, weapons in hand. Back off, Elias said, already shielding Rinya. But one grabbed her arm. She's not. Your wife? She's just a thing? Before Elias could move, Rinya did. She dropped low, grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted it so fast that he screamed, then slammed him into the dirt. The other 2 lunged, but she moved like she'd trained her whole life, ducking, spinning, disarming. In less than 10 seconds, they were all on the ground, groaning. The townspeople had gathered to watch, and now, no one was whispering. Elias stood frozen, stunned by her speed, her strength. Where did you learn that? She helped him up, brushing dust off his shoulder. Royal blood, she said quietly. We're not just born to sit on thrones. That evening, the town's mayor visited their shuttle. He stood at the door. Awkwardly, I saw what she did. She's not like the others. Elias nodded. She never was. The mayor cleared his throat. If you want her registered properly, we can do that now. Full ID, marriage record. No questions. Rinya stepped forward. We'll take it. Later that night, as the stars blinked above them, Elias asked her softly, You didn't need to fight. Wait. Why did you? Rinya looked at him, her voice calm. Because they touched my husband. The shuttle door slid open to a gentle breeze in a quiet sky. Elias stepped inside after a long day in the town market, carrying fresh supplies. He expected silence, maybe the soft hum of the engine. But instead, he paused at the entrance. Soft. Lights glowed along the walls. Delicate petals from glowing alien flowers were scattered on the floor. The air smelled warm, clean, sweet, alive. Rinya, he called gently. She stepped into view, wearing a long, flowing robe made from the cloth he brought days ago. Her silver blue hair was neatly braided behind her back. Her eyes shimmered brighter than any star he had ever seen. Welcome home, husband, she said softly. Elias blinked. He'd never heard her voice so steady, so full. It was glowing not just her skin, but her soul, and her hands she held. A small folded cloth. She walked up to him slowly, pressed the cloth into his hand, and stepped back. He unfolded it. Inside was a small medical certificate, translated into human script. It's verified by both Earth and alien colony systems. Subject, Rinya status, confirmed pregnant weeks. 6 father, Elias Varnis. Hands trembled slightly. He looked up. Rinya was staring at him, unsure of what he would say. Didn't plan to tell you yet, she said, but I want you to know I'm not scared anymore. Elias stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, holding her gently but tightly. She didn't cry this time. She only smiled and leaned her head against his chest. You saved me from death, she whispered, but you gave me life. Day. Sat together under the stars later that night, outside the shuttle, wrapped in a warm blanket. Rinya leaned into him and looked up. I thought I was frozen forever. I thought no one would ever see me as more than a thing. Elias kissed her forehead. We're never a thing. You were always someone. She turned her head toward him, smiling. Now I'm someone's. He looked down at her belly, then into her eyes. No, he said gently. Now you're everything. And somewhere, far beyond their little world, the stars kept shining, but none brighter than the new light they had found in each other.